sort of come together and work on projects. So I really enjoy content modeling. I think it's great to be able to, chat with content strategists and understand what they're looking for pretty early, and also get developers thinking about really ultimately how the content's going to be used by their solutions, which is really important. So
Nice, nice. I think what I've learned over time about when I was doing static sites and other Jamstack sites is that when you do invest your time into content modeling, everything just gets much easier. If the structure actually makes sense, all the queries get easier. So I'm happy to have you here. Um,
cheers.
and I think I can tell you something about the project that I'm working on. So it's actually a wedding site, a site where you should be able, as attendee, you should be able to see all the information about the wedding, where it's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, how you can actually get there. There's a little timeline as well, showing you what's gonna happen when. And of course, there is a RSVP form that should let me know who will come, and how they're gonna come, if they're gonna need accommodation and so on. Now I know that the whole page is in Czech. Sorry for that, but I have only one English-speaking guest, so I didn't want to go into trouble of translations just because of one person. But you get, what it's supposed to do from the looks, I hope. But
Right.
the good thing is we don't have to meddle with the CSS because I've already done all of that. It all works, and it looks well. Given that I'm not a web designer, I think it looks good.
Cool. Yeah, that's good.
And let me actually show you some of the requirements that I collected over time, because obviously everyone knows that I'm working in IT, so everyone expects that the website is gonna be top notch. It has to be like a state of the art, you know. So the basic requirements I already set those, right? That there should be basic information about the event. It should list all the information. It should list the information about the venue, agenda, and there should be a timer till the event is happening. There should be some kind of a timeline, but that's still simple content. Google Map location I already have there, parking situation map and things like that. But the important thing in terms of content modeling would be how to actually incorporate forms. So from every person, I need to collect information if they're gonna attend the event, if they're gonna come by car, or if they're gonna take the bus, or if there's even gonna be a need for a bus, and if they're gonna attend the ceremony and also reception, and possibly give me an email so that I can send them notifications. And I actually want the website to be two ways, so it should not just display information, but people should be able to interact with the website, change the forms, provide the emails, and the website should automatically just pick that up and send that back into the headless CMS where I'll be storing the content. Now I'm storing all the content in headless CMS Cantico content, because that was the easiest way how to get the information out there. And apart from the website, I also have some kind of reports that show me how many people will actually attend. That's just a simple Node.js app. So it's nice that there are multiple channels. But right now I want to get into how I'm gonna actually model this content. And before I let you go, I want to show you what I already have, because I already did a bit of the website, mainly the front end stuff, the static stuff. And what I have right now is one content type. So this is the content UI, and I have one content type called invitee. And in here I have mainly URL. The URL slug actually identifies one page in the static site that is for one specific person. So each person has their own invite, and on the invite they have a unique URL that's actually stored within this field. Because the wedding is happening 5 months from now, and so I already created the invites and sent them out. So the URL is kind of fixed. And I've created here a few fields for salutations, for how many actually people can that guest bring, and one text for email, but it's not used anywhere right now. Yeah. So that's what I currently have. And I wanna ask you now, how can I
Mhm.
incorporate the rest?
Right. So I think there's a few interesting things here.
Mhm.
Whenever you're starting off with content modeling, certainly whenever you're doing something on a website, what the general approach is you're trying to provide your model with sort of content structure and relationships between those things in a way that makes your content reusable so that you're not having to enter in the same content over and over again. And I think the other aspect of it is that you also want it to be somewhat easy for editors to kind of put together. So in this scenario, it's your website. It's kind of looks like it's a single page thing. You're the one who's going to be managing it. So I think there's kind of an element of being pragmatic about how far you go with the model. An example would be if you look at something like the venue. The wedding only has one venue, so you could in theory put that venue information into something else like a page type. But typically, what you do is that list of sort of high level types of content that you showed on
Mhm.
your in your requirements, that is a good starting point for your model in things of like you're going to have a timeline. So we'd want to have like a type of content that represents your timeline. And each one of those things that's in the timeline, we'd want to have that as being like a timeline item so that you can create one of those. You can change the order. You can set things like the main heading text, the body, and the time. So it's you've already done sort of like initial sort of thinking with regards to the content model through your actual
Mhm.
requirements. So that would kind of be the starting point. And sort of a typical project, when I talked about sort of the developers and the content people coming together, it can be more broad than that. It's actually sort of more, like the content strategist, the UX designer,
Mhm.
and the developer. You've got the tantamount of a very high quality wireframe right here. We can actually see how the content is going to be used, so that can also help to inform sort of the structure of the model with things like seeing that there's a timeline. So I think that's probably where I would start is just to actually look at, first of all, what is the sort of the reusable content that we
Mhm.
have here? What is sort of the primary entities that we've got with regards to this wedding website and to sort of model them out? And then that's like your primary content,
Mhm.
things like your reusable content, your invitee, your timeline item. But you'll also see if we like look up at the top of the page here, you've also got sort of what could be referred to as stuff that's specific to the channel. Like this is a website, so we've got some stuff here that's kind of like page furniture. Like we've got the navigation, which is sort of not very generic content, reusable content. It's very specifically bound to this actual channel, to the web channel.
Mhm.
So you're also going to have that type of thing being modeled as well potentially. You're going to have your primary content, stuff that's reusable, and then you're going to have some content types that are probably pretty specific to the channel. Where you might not find yourself doing that is if you actually had a second tool, something else that was actually managing your channel. But if we're
Mhm.
using content for this full website, we're going to be using Kentico content for our primary content types, and then we're probably going to create some content types that are specific to the channel, whether or not that's like a navigation type or some other way of dealing with that. So
Okay.
that's actually the next thing I'm thinking about writing about. So I've actually started doing it, but it's there's many different levels to it. That whole idea of what should you put in your model? You've got your standard content. Should you put anything in your model that's to do specifically with your channel? There's some purists that are like you should not go that far, but being pragmatic, I think you're going to have some of that in your model. You're going to have something that represents some of the page furniture, the stuff that is just specific to your channel, like your navigation and some other
Mhm.
UI elements that are around here as well. So
Okay. Cool. So where do we start? I mean, with the
yeah, so what we
content,
got.
yeah.
No, like just let's what did you have in your requirements?
Right. So in the requirements, one of the requirement is but you said some things about the timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, all the timeline items they will be personalized based on the attendees. So not every attendee will see all the timeline items.
Right.
So maybe that identifies the timeline items as specific content types.
Yeah. Are
Because for each
you
of
gonna
them,
be
yeah.
the personalization? You're gonna be are those timeline items going to sort of be grouped in a certain way as the ones that should show for a certain type of invitee and ones that should show for another?
hmm So yeah, I mean, could be because based on, for example, how people get to the event, if they drive a car, I'm not going to show them information about bus, right?
Right.
Or when it comes to photographing, you don't want to show, or if you want to show people groups where they should be photographed in, it's probably going to be different as well. So would it make sense to actually take each of these items into or store them as a separate content items and just assign them using a linked items maybe into the invitees? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Like you can literally start at the very top of the page of your design. So if we scroll all the way up to the top, one way, like if you're a team and you're working together on a wireframe,
Mm-hmm.
like you would typically have some of your content strategists would have done some thinking about the reusable content. But if you're at the point where you've got a wireframe, you can literally go through it from top to bottom and start thinking about how you would put that into your model. How would you start to componentize it? So we have your navigation at the top there. So that's something we could do. You've got your sort of like your main image here with it's got a background photo, it's got the text as well. That could be something else that we put in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the decision would be, well, where are we necessarily putting these into? Are we going to create a page type, something that represents just this home page that we can go and put things in as well? So that's another approach. It's very specific to the web channel, but it would be one way of doing it. Is this all in one page, or are you going to have a few other pages?
Yeah, so this is all in one page. And
Yeah.
the thing I was thinking about is that some of the information here is going to be pretty much static. So there's always going to be this picture, or it's probably going to be a different
Okay.
picture.
Okay.
There's always going to be this heading, this little start. So it's easy for me to actually manage this kind of content and this backgrounds as a static file.
Okay.
So
Let's just start with what you think you're going to edit then.
yeah, I
In
think
there.
what's going to definitely change. Well, this is going to change sometime,
Okay.
but it's changed for all of the generated pages. You know, it's the same content for everyone.
Yeah.
But what's going to be different? The first thing that's going to be different is the timeline items, and then obviously the forms, because whenever you fill the whole form, it should go green. Yeah, and it should tell you like this is fine. This is already
Right.
finished. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would maybe go with the timeline items
Cool. Let's do that then.
and try to link them. So I'm gonna
Okay.
create here a new content type, and I
Yeah.
think here we have a time here, we have a heading here and content. So let's call this one timeline item. We could create content groups, but I think for 3 items it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
So let's call this one time, another one for heading, and the rich text for content. Because right now these are fixed.
So how are you going to personalize these, or to decide whether one shows or doesn't show?
Yeah, so I thought that I would just go into invitee
Hmm.
and add here linked items all the way down here and call that timeline.
Okay, so per invitee, you'll then go and
Yeah,
relate that invitee to specific timeline items.
yeah, it's gonna be a lot of work, isn't it? Because I have like 39 invitees currently, so
Yeah.
I would have to do that for all of those.
Yeah. That's why. So there's any taxonomy maybe or something like that where you could, well, you can start with this, and then
Mhm.
because your content's going to be reusable, your timeline items are going to be reusable. So this timeline association that we've got, this relationship where we're saying an invitee is going to have a list of timelines. At some point, you might refactor that into something else, but your timeline items themselves will still be in your inventory,
Mhm.
all set up. So again, you can start with this, and if it gets more complicated, you could maybe change that to something else. It would really come down to whether or not you can make groups of timeline items and then just associate an invitee with that group or certain labels.
Yeah.
But that might be overkill, so maybe this is the right way to start.
Thinking about that, I could probably create groups of people. Just thinking whether it makes sense if it's just 39, people.
Yeah. No,
But
let's start with this.
uh, yeah, let's start with it this way. Um,
Cool.
let's make this one
So,
required because there always has to be at least one.
yeah. So this is one of the cool things I like in terms of content modeling in Kentico content is, putting in something like this linked item and then being able to set the allowed content types
Yeah.
and those sort of validation rules really help editors because then they're not getting confused, they're not being able to add in different types of content. It just helps to reinforce the model. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're ever making a model, you have opportunities to do things like this. It's definitely a win if you've got other editors who are going to be working on your site.
Yeah, I always appreciate it because whenever you add items into, well, I can show that on the next screen. Yeah, let's save those changes. And let's create a new item here. Let's call this one Michael.
Woohoo, I'm coming! I'm going to the wedding!
Well,
Hooray!
if you're happy to fly across half of the world, I'm happy to have you there.
Cool.
So salutation be Michael. Let's invite you with your wife.
Excellent, that makes sense.
No kids? It's a no kids event. And let's put something dummy here. So here we create timeline items. I don't have any right now, so we can create a bunch. So I'll just copy these things. Oops, that's not the time. But you have to learn Czech before you come.
I know, I'm gonna have to. I have a friend actually who is spending a year in Prague, and I think he's doing like 3 hours of language lessons a day.
Uh-huh.
So his Czech's coming along. It's pretty good.
Nice. Okay, so we got you here.
All right.
There's a arrival. I'll just quickly create the remaining two.
Cool. So then if
Yep.
I get the invite, I'm going to have that unique URL that you've got on my
Yes.
IT record. I'm going to land on the website, and then the website's going to show me those timeline items that are unique to me, personalized to me, because there might be something in the wedding during the day that's relevant to me or not relevant to me, and that's where you want that sort of stuff to personalize.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool.
And then it actually goes further because if you look down here, there is a form for accommodation, but
Yep.
for some of the people, they are accommodated by default, like the best man and his family. So they don't need to tell you these things because you already know that you're gonna host them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this should be also displayed only for those people.
Right. So your invitee info is driving kind of a lot of the experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna create one last thing here, but this is something interesting. Maybe you can do this one next, because that's gonna be a bit more difficult, I think.
Yeah.
So this is how do you call the meal that's after the ceremony?
The meal that's after the ceremony,
Yeah.
an unnecessary expense, or people not dinner?
Let's go at lunch.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
It's like it's the pre-dinner snacking, isn't it? It's the thing where
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's
canapes and
yeah. So here in Czech Republic, the tradition actually is to have a lunch,
Right.
and then you get the tables with food that are there available for the whole evening. Or when we have a Ryan in the chat. I'm
Yeah.
wondering why that is not displayed in the chat box here. Because it should be. He said it's called reception.
Ah,
So thank
Yes.
you, thank you, Ryan. I think you're right.
See, I got married in Ireland, and we just go straight to the pub. So it's
Yes, it was for a second and then it went away. Yes, sorry, that was my issue in configuration. Now I fixed it, so it should be displayed there. Thanks, Ryan. So reception. Okay, let's fix that. Reception. Okay. So we're gonna publish those later.
okay.
But what I'm really interested in is, because that's quite clear how we can get these items.
Right.
But what I'm interested in is this thing about accommodation. So with accommodation, there are basically two situations that can occur. One,
Mhm.
that the accommodation is already booked for those people,
Okay.
and I'm covering that. And the other is that we need to know from them whether they want us to actually solve their accommodation, or if they're gonna solve it themselves, or if they wanna sleep over in a tent. So
Right.
how would you model this?
Well, I suppose just like some sort of accommodation messaging that I've got it right. So based on the invitee, you're going to show one or another message to them based on the accommodation that's open to them. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then there's also the potential for the accommodation that you are offering to be completely full as being another state.
Well, that we can handle manually. I think that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
In scope of this project, or this information form, there are just four options that
Yeah.
it's already solved. They don't want it. They want it. They want to sleep in a tent. Those are four options. And there are additional info like how many people and if there is a node. But node and how many people, I think that's easy. Those are just the text items.
Yeah. And it's not that it's personalized per person. It's just that there's two states of it. Is that the case? So you could make like a accommodation sort of info or something that you're going to associate at the invitee level.
Yeah, so the information is one thing, but I need to get the information to go back to the invitee. So when we're looking here at Michael, I need to have here some kind of information, what he clicked on the site. So
Okay.
if he's actually interested, I was thinking something like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
checkbox, or something like a radio buttons, because here we have radio buttons, right? So something similar on Kentico's side, but I don't have experience. What would be the best?
Yeah, I think that would be an appropriate way of doing it. Like, are you updating these
Hmm.
invitees based on the form submissions? In which
Hmm.
case, these would be fields that you could put in directly into the invitee. Or if you want to make it something that you need to modify in one place, then you could create a specific content type for that accommodation info,
Hmm.
and then just link it there.
Okay.
So I'd probably make a type for it.
All right. So that would be accommodation.
Yeah.
Is that double C or just one C?
Double C, I think. I mean, I'm not the right person to
I don't have
ask.
Grammarly
I
in
can,
in,
I
in
can
this browser.
barely speak the language. I actually did a English test last week. I'm applying for Canadian citizenship, so I had to go and do like a English speaking and
Uh-huh.
listening test, which was great because like I'm native, so that was interesting. So we'll see. I haven't got the results yet. I may fail it. If I fail it, then it's going to be worrying. So yeah, like I think you could have this sort of accommodation type
Hmm.
where you're going to store the submission per invitee
Okay.
potentially, and
So
then
how are we? Let's say type. Could that be type or
yeah,
choice
well,
or option or some? It's probably not going to be
yeah,
text though.
yeah. So you've got a
Multiple
multiple choice
choice.
here that's going to represent the options that you have there.
So option. Let's call that option. And we probably want radio buttons because it's those options are mutually exclusive.
Okay.
So uh, what do we put here? Like already booked. That's when it's already solved. The other would be interested in. So that's the first that's this option that they want us to solve that. The next thing would be the tent. Let's make this a bit more explanatory. And the last thing is not interested. Okay, I think that's fine. And I'm gonna put here the two text fields for these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna put here. So how do you put this? Amount of people or people? And it's probably not gonna be a rich text. It's probably gonna be just text. Is there any limitation on the text here? By default, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Let's call this one how many. That's more explanatory. Okay, note how many and the option. Okay, that's cool. So I can save this one. And I guess that I'm gonna link this one into the invitee.
Yeah, like there's let's do it this way. There is another option to do it, like
Okay.
everything in Kentico content, but so what maybe do is we could link it. So like thinking about, why structuring it in this way is that you can get straight to and query for all of your accommodations, the things that people have submitted, and get that information on its own. There could be an argument made for that could potentially be over engineering, given an invitee will only ever have one submission. We could have just added those fields directly into the invitee in a different content group, into this content item as well. So it'll just come down to how you sort of want to play with the submissions and the information sort of after the fact, as to whether or not you'd want to, if you're always pulling the invitee and their accommodation at the same time and looking at those records, then separating them might not necessarily be what you want to do. Or in terms of updating with it separate in the way that it is, you can create an accommodation records on its own or a content item on its own through the CMS API. You're not having to go in and hit this one as well, so they can be created on their own. So it's really, it kind of just comes down to how you're going to use that as well, which might mean that once you start to actually develop this and start to do submissions, like you might start to refactor your model. You might say, I don't want that as its own type. I'm just going to stick the fields directly into an invitee. So again, it's one of those things where once you start to move forward with the application, you might start to play around with the models a bit.
So does that happen a lot, that you have to actually refactor the content?
I think when it comes down to things that are, like, we're talking about stuff that's kind of a bit channel specific, or it's to do with like that flow of a form submission. So it tends to change there more. It changes less with sort of those core content types, like, things like, if you were doing like a product website, your standard product information and the product catalog and how things are grouped, and those sort of types will stay fixed. But stuff that's very either tied to the presentation layer or something like a form, you might start to play around with that a bit, or you're introducing new things as you think of new ways of sort of showing that content. Suddenly you need like a related items thing, and you're like, right, well, I'm going to model that in. I'm going to add or extend my model some of the information. But things like an article, an event, a blog post, a product, an album, an artist, those sort of primary content types tend to stay the same.
Right.
So
right, that makes sense. Yeah.
You might find once you start to actually build the application out in terms of how you're using it, it's a quick fix. You might be like, actually, yeah, the way I'm consuming the API, the way I'm hitting the API, I'm going to refactor the model slightly. So if we do it in this way and have an accommodation and link it to an item, then that record is going to be in a separate content type, versus it being something that's directly created here just on this. So.
Right. Some might think that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the nice thing about that is the editing experience that Kentico content provides is that you can, again, create that accommodation item from within this invitee. You can see the information from within this invitee. So from an editor perspective, that's still something that's linked.
Yeah, that's true. So when I just save it like this, that I'm requiring one type of accommodation, and go back to your... Oh, not the reception. I want Michael. So I'm just gonna create a new accommodation item here.
So this is something that ultimately will be done through that form submission whenever a user submits the form. Is that you're going to come in with the CMS API and then take that form submission and set these values based on what I've submitted?
That's true. We could do that too. Yeah. But the thing is that I marked it as required, so I wouldn't be able to publish it unless it exists. But maybe we could do it like that. So let me just go back and remove this. And actually make it not required then.
Yeah.
So that would maybe make more sense. So this is not going to be required. And we can go back to you. And we should be able to publish you now. One element left to complete, not filled in correctly. Oh, because it requires one content item of accommodation. So I'm just gonna fix that too. So at most, one.
Cool.
So now we should be able to publish you. Okay. Yeah. Oh, this is nice. Yeah, publish all of them.
Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, so we're published now. Now I want to go a bit into the implementation. So now that we've done a bit of the content modeling, I'm gonna finish that later on. But I want to go into the implementation a bit. So this is the template in its HTML form. So there is nothing really that interesting. I think it's just a bunch of divs. But what I was looking for is the other window where I actually have the implementation. And currently, this is just a simple implementation of the website on GridSum. GridSum is a static site generator for Vue.js. Do you have experience with any one of those?
No, it's been done a bit of React and Gatsby. I haven't actually played around with Vue.js yet, so interested to see what the new, that's the newness, but the next newness.
So the good thing is that if you know Gatsby and if you do have experience with React, why am I showing you style sheets? The good thing is that GridSum and Vue.js will be really easy to take in. So it all starts with the configuration, just like with Gatsby. I see there is not really much going on. There is just one plugin that I'm using that actually takes the data from content. So there is a plugin that actually lets you get all the data. But the important thing is to understand that the data, just like with Gatsby, are gathered on when you actually start the build. So even if you develop locally, at the start of the build, it actually takes all the data. It creates its own internal nodes, and then you have all the data available in your project. So for that, I'm using the GridSum source Cantico content plugin. It's open source on GitHub. And I'm using project ID, which is in my environmental file. And the great thing about this static site generator, or they call it frameworks nowadays, that actually differs from Gatsby, is that you can actually provide a template for a specific content type. So with Gatsby, you actually have to create a GraphQL query, and you call a create node with the data and with the template that you want to use for those pages. With GridSum, and I think that this is a really great concept. For GridSum, you just create a template for a specific content type, and the template is called the same way as the type. Yeah. So right now my type is called invitee, so the template is called the same way, and here there's just a GraphQL query that actually gets all the information I need for that page to render it. So I'm getting salutation, how many people were invited, although I don't think I'm using that anywhere, and an email. So I could potentially, probably not a template, but I'm gonna create a component here for the accommodation, and I don't think I have that here yet. But that's one of the great things. I think that these are also connected somewhere, but I totally forgot where that was. I think it was somewhere in source. Let me just quickly check that. I think it's in main.js. Or could it be here? No, it's probably not here. No, this is static files. It's not here, definitely. Okay, I don't know where that is, but I do remember I somewhere said that invitee should be used like that. But yeah, I don't know. But let's say that it just works.
Right.
So at this point, let me actually start the site. I'm just gonna switch to the right folder. Okay, here we go. So just like with Gatsby, I'm just gonna go and call grid some develop. I hope that's the right command. And it takes a little while. Ooh, and I did not... Oh, your URL is quite simple. So now your page should be accessible under localhost, I think it's 8000, the port is 8000, / Michael Kinkaid, and we should see your page. So you see it's creating the schema and so on.
Cool.
The template the template is basically the whole page, but some of the personalized things are just exchanged for your information. Like the salutation here, there is an intro component that I'm giving the parameters salutation, how many invited and how many invited kids.
Right.
So you see it works very similarly to Gatsby. You just give it the data, and the component looks like this. So sorry. So here I'm getting the salutation, and the method is defined here, and based on how many is invited actually. So in Czech Republic or in Czech language, we actually have to there's a difference between greeting one person and greeting multiple persons. So that's exactly what this method does based on how many were invited. So if it's just you, it's gonna show this, but I think I invited you and your wife, so it's gonna be this one. So let's see if that works. Localhost 8080. Okay. See that? It's page personalized exactly for you. So there we go.
All right.
Okay, so that's what works currently.
Right.
So that's fine. But what I want to do is I want to create a component here, and maybe I'm just going to start with the template. So in the template, somewhere here, this is the timeline. So here's the RSVP. So I already have a component for RSVP.
Do you want to put a component in for the timeline as well, or?
Not yet, no.
Not yet?
So this is the timeline.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
I tried to keep the HTML as easy as possible. But yeah, this is a candidate for its own component, definitely. Yeah. But let's take a look at the RSVP now. Components RSVP. There we go. So you see with Vue.js, the components, at least from my point of view, because with React you have multiple options how you can define the component. With Vue.js, it's always the same. So you always have a template, and below it there is a script. And the script contains all the code that is related to the template. So for me that totally makes sense and makes my life so much easier, you know, that I have everything in one place. And here it's just a standard JavaScript, so I'm just using the scripts that I need. So this was, I think I already started with implementation a bit, but I don't think that this works quite yet. So this is the markup that I'm using for the RSVP form, but that changed in the meantime. So let me just open the template first. Okay, there we go. Wow, that's white. That always happens when I open Notepad with Visual Studio Code.
Yeah.
It's always a bit of a shock. So I'm looking at this section. So this is just one section of the RSVP. It's not the whole thing.
Right.
But maybe if we're looking at the different sections, maybe each of those sections would have its own content type. So we've created one content type for accommodation.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a candidate and do its own components as well, like a parts of RSVP, just to, make it clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least that's what I would do.
Yeah, I go do the same thing.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna delete this part. I think that's the old part. And put here a new component, RSVP accommodation. Now I'm thinking if there is a double M. So I'm just gonna create a component here. RSVP accommodation. And what I always love the most, just copy paste the stuff. And actually this should actually already work. We should put here the component. Now I always forget how that works. So let me just cheat a bit and look at other components. Where do I have components? Here it is. So we need to export default and one of the items will be component. So we already have that here. So components would be RSVP accommodation. And I think I need to define that. I think it's not going to like the dash. So I'm just going to have to change that into underscore. So I'm used with CSS styles, you always have to use the dash, and here it's the other way around. But I think this should work. Where did I take that from? Here. So import, oh, it's actually this way. It's not a const.
Right. CS6 run conjs.
So import RSVP. In that case, I should be able to use my own name for it. So from components, RSVP accommodation.view. And component would be RSVP accommodation. Wow. So we should be good to go. And this should be a hot reload, I think, so I wouldn't have to press the F5. Okay, it looks a bit worse than in my template, but that's probably because of the style sheets.
So did you say that form may or may not appear to individual invitees based on, so do you think we need to have, or we'd need to have some sort of setting on the invitee record for whether or not the accommodation should show, or if it applies to them or not?
Definitely we need that, I'm just going to quickly copy the assets. And then we're going to take a look. So I'm just going to check that the assets are in place. Now something is still not right. Maybe I'm just forgetting some kind of style sheets from head.
Maybe we should use a table.
Yeah, I know.
That would never feel giving.
I know what I'm missing. I think there is some kind of a special div around the sections. So maybe that's way too small, but there is a section here.
Right.
I think this is what I'm missing.
Okay.
RSVP. So back to the parent component. Yeah. Now it should be the same. Okay. So you see,
Nice.
it actually does have a hot reload.
Hot reload, it's great. Cool.
Yeah. So here there is already salutation here that we need to replace. So let's take a look at what we can do with that. So here we definitely need a prop called salutation. I'm just gonna use the same data that I already got in the other component. So here I'm actually relying on the data that I get from the parent component. So the parent, or actually parent template. So that's invitee.
Right.
And here I'm getting the salutation and other stuff. So maybe this is the good place where I could add the accommodation type. I'm just gonna put it here, salutation. And it actually goes for page invitee and salutation. And here on the template, I think, on this one, I think we need to define the props, yes. So we have stored email here, another one would be salutation, which would be a string. And I'm just gonna pass that. So we have stored email, how do we use that here? Oh, and no way. That's good. I'm not sure how we actually use the props here, but there are not that many options. I'm just gonna try that. Not sure that this is correct. Maybe we can fix that later. But what I wanted to do is to take a look. So when you run the project, there is something very similar to GraphQL interface. So that's 3 underscores, I think, and explore. So that shows you all the data that are available, which I essentially want.
Ooh, it looks different.
Yeah, a bit. So right now I'm looking for a specific ID. So let me just go into content and see what kind of ID you have. Not code name. How do I find the ID on a published item? It's hidden somewhere. I'm gonna find it.
It's not just the code name?
No. The code name is this, but I'm looking for item ID. But that's fine. What I can do here, I can just change that and write it again. I can get all timeline items and filter it. If only I knew how this works. Let me check what it was there. So the query will not have any parameters, or actually it will. Code name. I'm just gonna add here a code name to be yours. And we are looking for invitee, but not ID, but code name. Okay, how come I don't have a code name here?
Yeah, that's weird.
Here I have the code name. Not just ID. Why is there just ID? Okay, let's take a look at all invitees. I'm not sure what is the right syntax here. So I want to filter. Not schema. What do we have here? Invitee. Still not on the ID. That's interesting. Okay, let's do it this way. We want edges from all invitees. And we're looking for code name. Code name is never used in operation. That's true. Okay, we have you here. So now you want to filter that. Okay, I'm gonna ask Google.
Code name. Yeah.
GraphQL query filter. That's usually a safe bet. Okay, I'm missing colon. I'm always hitting Control and space, hoping that it would help me. Okay, filter. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. I have to say the Gatsby interface is much easier to use.
Yeah, that means that.
We got something in the chat. Invitee filter QL. I don't think that's gonna work. But what does this do? Invitee filter input. So maybe we're looking at something like this. String query operator. Okay, that's fair. So equals. Look at that.
Ta-da. You found me.
That wasn't that bad. Okay, so, but why were we doing this in the first place? I forgot.
You want to go ahead and check out all the info for that record, like the
Oh yeah,
accommodation
that's
info?
true. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
no
wanted
worries.
to check what's the accommodation. But why don't I have it here? So name, code name, type, blah blah blah, name one. What is the code name actually of the accommodation linked items? There are none yet. Maybe I need to check the content type.
It's probably just accommodation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would expect.
Mm.
But it's not showing here. So we have ID, name, code name, language code, type name. What's a name one? That's you.
Yeah. And it's not because we don't have an item in the accommodation. It's because there's no value in that item.
Sorry, once again, please.
Is it because there's no value, like nowhere in any of the data coming down do we have an invitee with an accommodation info set to it?
That could be, yeah. That's I think you're onto something. Yeah, that could be the case. That could be the case. So we're getting, so this is the name one actually, or this one, or this is a name, which is weird because it should be salutation.
Yeah.
This is salutation. This is name. But maybe the name one is the name of the content item. You know, the one that it's stored under. But that doesn't help me at all.
Yeah, so we're not getting.
Okay, just for the sake of this, let me actually create here an accommodation item for you. Just so that we can do the front end.
Yeah.
I'm gonna unpublish this. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna create new accommodation item. Let's say this is booked already. How many? 2. Note, there is no note. Oh, I don't want to publish that just yet. Just want to publish it together with your content item. Okay. One question in the chat: do you need to restart GridSum to pull down updates? That's a good question, but I think that we started GridSum after we
Yeah,
changed the
yeah,
content type, right? So that should
yeah.
not be the problem. But let's try to do that again. Now the publishing usually is instant, but sometimes it can take up to a few seconds.
Yeah.
So hopefully,
Didn't there used to be an issue with Gatsby and the same sort of thing, where you needed to create like dummies of content types, like dummy entries with all the possible values. Otherwise, the GraphQL, if there was no value anywhere, it would never be queryable.
uh, you might be right, but that's quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, could have been that. Okay, so let's refresh this. Let's see what we have here. Accommodation.
There we go.
Awesome. So this must have a selection of subfields. That makes sense. So we're looking for accommodation. What are we looking for? How many?
Many.
How did I call that?
I know. What was the first one?
What was, yeah.
Did you call something like type? Something really.
Yeah. I always forget about that. Option.
Yeah. Oh, well,
What a bad name, you know? What a bad and generic name.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see if we have option there. Of course we do, but who would have thought? Yeah. Option, of course, has to have a selection, and that would be a code name. So we're probably gonna bound those to code names. So your code name is booked. So if there is a code name booked, we're gonna display that sentence. If there is not booked, we're gonna display the form. So we don't care about how many just yet. But we're gonna care about that later on. So might as well just add it there. We're also gonna care about the node. And what was the last thing there? Option, how many node? Nothing else.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So we're looking for this. Now, what we need to do is actually include this in, this one.
Your query?
Sorry?
You're going to include that into your
template.
Query? Right.
Yes. So here actually, this is actually the master query for everything that happens on the page.
Okay.
So I'm looking for accommodation, and I'm looking for option, code name, and I'm looking for how many, and node. Okay, that should be fine. I'm wondering if I can actually pass that to the component as a one object. That would be awesome. So we should have those information here in the template. Okay, let me make this bigger.
Right. Should I pass it down as ph.invitee.accommodation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's gonna work?
I've never used Vue before, so let's give it a crack. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
we're just gonna have more properties. More
I did use Vue a few times, but I don't know how that's gonna work. So invitee and accommodation. Okay. Now the first problem would be, what kind of type are we gonna define here?
You say object or?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that works. Otherwise, when working with GridSum, you actually get quite nice error messages. So,
Yeah.
where is... Okay, I think I closed it. So I'm just gonna put here Michael. Okay, so when it displays nothing, you know that something's wrong. Usually get the information in the console. So see, object is not defined. I don't think we have objects in JavaScript. But maybe we can just omit the type. So it's hot reloading the stuff. Cannot read property class list of null. Okay, that's a different error. So that's good. That's a good sign. And I think that comes from here. If I'm not mistaken, let me check. I think that the classes need to be class names in components. I just want to find one component that would confirm that, but it isn't. That's fine. I think that's Gatsby. That's not Vue. Okay, so what's wrong here? Where does that problem occur? smap. Okay, smap is the map interface, so that's not really an issue of the site. Oh, yeah, my mistake. That was the main page, you know, the main page.
Right.
If you don't have that that suffix, it just shows you there is no content. So that was the problem. So accommodation is not defined in rsvp.view. In rsvp.view, accommodation is not defined. Okay, yeah, so wouldn't work as well.
I thought object with a capital O is you can set as a type, but maybe I'm got my C# head on. I know, like a.
We'll see.
Or even just.
Oh, again, Michael. Nice, good job.
Oh no, yeah, it's alright.
So now I know where I'm gonna go for a JavaScript advice. But it's actually still nothing here, but that's a different problem here.
Right.
So type check failed for prop accommodation, expected object got array. Okay, that's fair enough. So I think
it's array. Okay.
Yeah, it's array because here this is actually gonna be an array because accommodation is an object, so it's gonna give me, you know, from the delivery response, it's gonna give me the array of stuff.
Okay.
Just thinking what's gonna happen if there's gonna be null, but we're gonna find out. Let's just make this one array then. Nope, still not liking it. This is not, but that's my problem. Cannot read property props of undefined. So that's a problem within the component because this is clearly wrong. And let me check. So this is, not sure if we have actually a component that has some other components within. Oh, there is one, navigation, but that does not have any props. So what about intro? Intro has props, and we're using them. Get salutation. I think we can just reference them directly.
Right.
Not sure about that, but we can try. Was that here? Yeah. So if we go for salutation, would that work? Oh, we got RZP here. Still nothing here, but seems that the component already has the data. So that's good. CSS is a bit broken, but we can live with that for now. So we're looking for this right now, I think. View cannot read property props of undefined. So salutation is there and is displayed this thing. And we need to define the prop here. So that's the fun part. Export default. The prop is gonna be salutation, which is a string. And we're also gonna get the accommodation object. Oh, that's an array.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So when we get the salutation, we can probably change this. And actually double curly brackets should output your salutation. See that?
Nice.
Okay, seems to start looking good. So when this is displayed, this is displayed only in case the option is booked. So we're looking for something in the accommodation, and actually Vue.js has a vif, and we're looking for accommodation. So what's going to be inside? It's going to be the option. code name that should equal to booked. And if I'm not mistaken, we could do VElse and put the whole thing in a VElse branch. Okay. That does not work. Let me refresh that. We haven't done that for a long time. So here's gonna be the form. It's not displayed at all. So what's the problem now?
Our accommodation was an array, though, wasn't it?
Oh, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we need to have a look in there to see how it's structured. Like, is that first item in the array, is that our option object, or I need to see.
Well, what we can do is we can output the whole thing here.
Yeah. Let's just have a peek, see what we've got.
Yeah. Let's see if that's gonna work. Cannot read property option of undefined. Okay, we're onto something. So this is clearly a problem because it's undefined. Did I? Yeah,
Well, it's because I.
double M. Okay. Oh, here's a problem.
Oh.
I did not really pass the data back to the component. Okay, what are we getting now? Cannot read property codename of undefined. I think that's the old one, but the new one is still here. View component. So accommodations here. So that should be fine. But this is a wrong component. How come it worked before? That's weird. Okay, let me actually refresh the whole thing again. Nope, still nothing. Still property codename of undefined cache loader. Okay, let me do a quick fix to see if that's gonna work like this, at least. Okay, now that's better. So we get option.
So
yeah.
So array just has one object in it.
It's an array with an object, so I was
Just
a bit
one
too
single
quick.
object. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's an array, the first object of an array. So let's uncomment this. So we're looking at accommodation, the first object.
Yeah, and then let's have a look at option.
And again, first object, right?
Yeah, because it's an array in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And codename equals booked. I love this debugging.
Yeah.
Okay, so now wow, you are in the hotel. So you're fine. And the diff else should be displayed in all other cases. So now let's do a quick check. Now let's say, is this your item? This is your item. Let's say you will sleep in a tent. Or
Awesome.
so okay, one thing here. How do I go back to this one not being selected? Oh, this way. Wow, did not expect that. So I can unselect it just like that. That's unexpected functionality from a radio button, but nice. So in case nothing is selected here, I'm still able to publish that, hopefully. Oh, I did not publish the accommodation. So I have to do it once again. Okay. So now we should see different stuff here, but only once we build that again. So we got
Right.
the update. So what we should see is the form.
So, Andre, are you using, would you say that Gridsum and Vue is like your go-to stack for static websites at the moment? Is that
So,
kind of what you
so
prefer? Or?
yeah, so right now it is. I tried to start with this website in Gatsby, but after 2 days, because I'm not that experienced in React, to be honest. So Vue.js is just to me it's much clearer and much simpler to use. So I'm just going with this.
Yeah.
Because it's faster. With Gridsum, what I couldn't achieve with Gatsby in 2 days, I got working in Gridsum in 2 hours.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's just because I don't have experience with React. Yeah. Could be for someone. It could be the other way around.
Yeah.
So why this failed to compile? Module build failed. Page query. Cannot query field option
Field
on
option
type
on type
accommodation. Okay, so it doesn't like accommodation.
Is it because we've gone and provided again this challenge of giving it no information? There's nothing set for that, so it's not getting that structure. Like we put values in for our option.
Yeah.
It builds fine because
that's
it's falling down
right.
in the GraphQL querying. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think that this is a specific of the plugin that gets the data.
Yeah.
Because there is no. Yeah. So what we need to do in order to fix this is we're gonna need to go into accommodation. So essentially, we're gonna have to provide accommodation object for all invitees. And what we're gonna need to do is put here into the options one additional option that would be called not filled or not selected or unset.
Oh, are you assigning that as like a default value or?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is where like you might find you tweaking the model a bit for the channel.
Mm-hmm.
You could say I'm not going to have a separate accommodation type. I'm just going to stick these fields directly into the invitee. But again, if regardless of where these fields are, if you're not going to get that structure in your schema to query because there's no value associated to it, you're still going to end up going down the path of creating some dummy, record with those values with dummy values in it, just for the sake of being able to query it. So.
So how do I make this one a default selection? Can I do that actually here?
I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither. Okay, let's. But that's fine. I'm just gonna add that one here. Because I think it's just because the item, the content item is there. If the item was not there, I think we would be fine. So let's unpublish it. And let's say unset. Now let's publish it again. Okay. Now we should not get the awful error. Yay. Okay, that worked.
Yeah.
So now
we need to check
form.
Gridsum. Maybe there might be a way in Gridsum with like their schema API or something like that to actually let it know what to expect, so that the option isn't set as a value coming down. That at least it's something that's queryable. But
yeah, I think that the plugin for Gridsum from content is not really that mature as the one for Gatsby. So this would get much easier with Gatsby, essentially. But still, it works.
Yeah, cool.
Still, we can work around it. There are a few questions in the chat or questions. Do you need to restart Gridsum to pull down updates? Yes, you do need to do that. because it works the same way as Gatsby plugin. And the note that there is a Chrome extension for Vue. Yes, I think I have that on my other laptop, not on this one, but I've used it, and it's a definitely great extension for debugging stuff. So my personal site, I actually have that built on Vue.js and Nuxt, which is another static site generator. And I've had a few issues with Vuex Store. That's actually a place where you store the data and which you call when you need to get some data from. And I've had some synchronization issues with the store, and actually nobody knew what caused that. A few of the developers from within our company were looking at it and they couldn't figure it out either. So I just installed the extension and had it solved in like 15 minutes. So
Cool.
definitely a great thing to have in Chrome if you're working with Vue.js. Just install the extension. I'm gonna do that once I finish this Twitch. So right, so we have the form here, and what I actually want to do here is check. I think I had that here. Check when someone actually fills the data. So whenever I click on one of these things, and I think that we have an issue with labels here. So this is how many? No, this one. Accommodation ID non-hotel tent. So this should go here. Okay, so this should now work. So whenever I click on this, I want to store the data in content. Now, in order to do that, I'll probably need a content management API to get the data, to send the data back into the system. So first of all, I'm just gonna display an alert box whenever I click on the item. So for that, I'm gonna need a debounce. That's the thing I prepared here. And I think it actually worked at some point here. So this is the method that I'm looking for. So actually with Vue.js, all the methods need to be in a methods object. And here, this is a debounce for, let's say this is going to be debounce for accommodation option. And it's going to debounce after 200 milliseconds. The debounce is good for usually just inputs, because whenever you click on the radio button, it's pretty much clicked. Nothing else can happen there. But yeah, we could probably simplify that as well. And I think we need to assign that. And I think I had that somewhere over here, but I don't anymore. So there is some kind of a binding. And I think that the value needs to be bound to some kind of prop. And we have the prop here, accommodation. So let me see if we can actually do a binding. So the input radio is selected. I think the right one is selected. So accommodation 0 option 0 codename equals none. Is that the right value? So we're looking for the option value here. And I think those are a bit different than what I have here. Just gonna display both windows here. So I need to take a look at the content type, which would be accommodation, and the code names for the multiple choice options. So these are basically the same thing as we have in content, and the values should correspond to the code names. So none means that's actually not interested. So the code name would be this. So So there are basically two tasks that I need to do, right? The first, I need to display what kind of a radio button is selected, and the other one is whenever that selection changes, I need to take that information and put it back into content. So just to make it easier, I'm just gonna keep those values the same. Form control, okay, I think we're fine with this. And I'm not sure if this is gonna work, the selected stuff, we'll see. But I think for that, I will need to go back to your content item. Actually to your accommodation. And that will be unset, so none of those should be displayed, but I want to check if that works. So I'm just going to unpublish that. And I'm going to say you're not interested. So that's the only option that I currently have here implemented. So that's none. Publish that and fix it here. So this is not interested. Not interested. So if this is working, we should see the not interested option selected.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's check. Oh, we have to rebuild that. Yeah.
So what are you thinking in terms of the submission and processing to the Kinkaid content management API? Where are you going to stick that? You can use a serverless function or?
Yeah, actually, I think that the whole component is a candidate for a serverless function because this thing, that's going to work right now when we generate the site. But if someone actually changes the value, I get the value back in content, and they would visit the site again. They would still see the old value because the site is not regenerated when they post the value back. We could also create a CI pipeline that would actually regenerate the whole site whenever some value changes. But it depends if that wouldn't be a bit of an overkill for just a small change. Yeah. So it depends, but I think that this would be a very good candidate for a totally dynamic component.
Yeah, even just to process the form submission.
Yeah, for the form submission, obviously, we're gonna need a serverless function because we don't wanna give the credentials to the whole world. Yeah, for content management API, you can do a lot of harm with that token. So for that reason, we're gonna definitely need a serverless function. But I don't think we're gonna make that in this Twitch.
in 1 minute? Yeah.
yeah. I don't want to keep you for too long. But let's see if this one actually. So we can at least get this one working statically. It's still not checked, so let's see what am I doing wrong here. So salutation is not displayed. That's okay. So another. I'm gonna do another take on the debugging stuff. Okay, so we have option, codename not interested. So accommodation, first item, option, first item, codename equals not interested. So this should be checked. Maybe it's checked, not selected.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Great.
there we go. Wow.
Nice.
Nice. Okay, I think this is good for today. This is nice. We see that it's not dynamic yet, but it's dynamic enough in terms that it displays the data, very personalized data from content. It's based on a specific URL that we have here. And next time, I'm probably gonna get to that like tomorrow or sometime. I'm gonna tweet about that. So if you're interested, you can take a look as well.
Yeah, nice.
So in the next or the next step would be to actually take the whole component and make it dynamic, to make sure that it always gets the fresh content, not the static content that's been sitting there for a while. And whenever something happens, just debounce and put that back in the content. For that reason, I actually have here also these nice status icons. And actually, they are very ready for dynamic implementation, because if you take a look here, there are also other icons. So if I just hide this one, I can show you how prepared I am. So you see, this is going to be displayed whenever you just debounce. It just shows loading button.
Nice.
And when it's finished, it's just going to show you the check mark, right? So I'm going to get to that tomorrow, hopefully, if there is nothing more pressing. All right, so great work today. Thanks for being here, Michael.
No problem. I'm gonna go and check out Vue and Gridson, because I haven't looked into those stacks yet, just to see how get a bit more into some of the stuff that you've done. But that's cool. And I also am gonna have to go and try and find you a wedding present now. So
nice.
If I'm going to come with the wife in the tent, I might as well bring something.
You could do that. It's not that big a trip, and you could see all the beautiful nature here in Czech Republic.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, Andre.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And to all of your other viewers, guys, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you again, hopefully sometime soon, because I really have to get this done this week. Otherwise, I'm going to be a dead man. So thanks again for watching. See you next time, guys. Bye, Michael.